Last year I recorded a few speed paint videos where I painted single elements and parts of figures in one take. They were supposed to show principles of miniature painting from start to finish. This is some of the comments they gathered.
Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. All right?
All right. Welcome, owners of fine luxury plastic toy soldiers. You're watching Travarian Miniatures. My name is Chris, coming to you from my basement, because basements is what Austrians do best. There's a current trend on YouTube to paint everything as fast as possible, and it creates an environment where fast becomes synonym with good, at least judging from the comments that I get on some videos. I'm here to tell you, don't ever listen to anyone trying to tell you how you should paint. If you want to go fast, go fast. If you want to take your time, take your time. Paint the way you enjoy the most. This is your hobby and you should enjoy it the way that makes you happy. That said, however, I do like myself a good challenge, so let's bang out the miniature in 30 minutes. Starting off with a black base coat, but I wanted a foundation of white to work off of, so I prepped my airbrush. The mix consisted of thinner, a drop of glow improver, and white ink, which would give me a smooth surface that is important when working with contrast paints. I also added a brush load of sunny skin tone to get a warm white that would work better with the red I planned on using. I'm applying the white from a zenithal direction. I wanted most of the figure white so I could work with contrast paint, but I made sure to keep some of the lower parts to remain dark. This would give me a bit of a natural shadow when applying the red base color. And I give the kneecaps a bit of love too from above, just enough so that the shapes are defined properly. I added a bit more sunny skin tone to the mix to improve the sunlit feeling and sprayed one extra layer. That made the effect really pop out. Then I took contrast paint Blood Angels Red and applied it out of the pot. Trying not to lose too much time here, but in the back of my head I already had the plan to control where the shadows would go. So as much as possible I tried to keep it pooling in the recesses for a dark lining effect, but also according to where the shadows would form when using a zenithal light. And I'm mostly trying to do that with a single layer to speed everything up. You can see how I wipe away pools from exposed areas so that they stay bright. And how I sometimes apply a second layer to cover the white in a more opaque way to create extra shadows, like here on the backpack. Apart from a few pools that ended up too big and opaque, like on the hip protector plates, I like the result for how fast it was. I still wish this paint would give you more edge highlights, but it is what it is. I had to completely drop all expectations I had during this. 30 minutes is no time at all, and you shouldn't even think about going over an area twice or correcting something you feel like is a mistake. Feel like your shading covers a little bit too much? Well, you're stuck with it. Everything has to go on the miniature the way it goes on the first time, and that's it. I wasn't quite happy about the depth of the model, and I wanted to get the shadows a bit darker and also give them a cooler hue. This would keep the focus on the upper parts and also make the upper parts appear brighter and more saturated. So I used this purple ink and airbrushed on shadows from below. The ink is transparent, which would keep most edge highlights still visible. I think in hindsight, applying the contrast paint a bit thinner and just shading with the ink could have produced a more vibrant finish for the red. Something to keep in mind for some future projects. I'm also shading the parts of armor where the helmet would cast a shadow. It's a really great way to build up shadows and shift in color gradually. See how the underside of the kneecaps gets darker as well as the lower parts of the leg, while the ink accumulates in the recesses, and at the same time leaving the upward facing feet brighter, because the ink doesn't catch on there as much. I keep picking out spots that I wanted to shade and applied a quick spray of ink, which was settling nicely on the smooth surface that the contrast paint created. I'm giving everything a coat of AK Interactive's Ultra Matte varnish because the whole miniature was glossier than a greased up bodybuilder at this point. In order to create additional level of detail quickly, I took a part of a blister sponge and dipped it into AK Interactive's chipping color, and I mixed that with a bit of a red brown to do the good old blister sponge chipping method. The AK Interactive color is super matte and has high surface tension, which makes the resulting chips more realistic. I'm using a lot of color on the sponge, which is not the recommended method as it can lead to disaster quickly. I usually try to get rid of 80 to 90% of the color before I put it even close to a miniature, but we got to move quickly here, even if our chips will probably end up being too big in some places. I'm going to give this method another look in a dedicated weathering video so you can see how great it can look when applied more carefully. So while doing the chipping, I'm trying to stick to the edges for the most part to keep it credible. I tried to rush through this as much as possible and it only took a few minutes. For the black I considered using contrast black template paint, but ended up just using regular black acrylics. I did however end up using one layer of contrast paint on the connective parts between the armor plates, which normally I would give an additional highlight layer, but there was no time for that, and a bit of the red just shining through the contrast paint was okay enough. I painted the metal parts with scale 75's heavy metal. Using confident strokes, I tried to cover as many of the metallic parts I could in one layer. If I had some minor spillovers into adjacent colors at this stage, I could always cover them with the shading step that will come next. Using Defilamont mixed with a bit of black, I'm applying a quick shade. The way Games Workshop washes cover due to their surface tension stays intact even when you mix a bit of regular acrylic color in. That way you can make them more intense, but still retain the results they give, and their ability to be applied quickly stays intact. Next I took scale 75 speed metal and I would be using this for two things. First, I decided that it would be worth to invest a little bit of time into bringing back some of the shine on the metal parts, so I highlighted some edges and added additional reflections on these, for example on the barrel and the scope. I knew I would never ever have time to put additional highlights onto the red, so I was going to kill two birds with one stone by increasing the edge contrast with the speed metal. Putting it on the edges would work as an edge highlight and therefore help with breathability, and at the same time would show as chipped paint with the metal showing through, which adds additional detail and just looks cool. Normally I would focus these where I already used chipping medium, but no time for that. I did the same thing for the black parts of the bolter, just using the metallic paints instead of a highlight color for the black, varying the stroke width to simulate different levels of use and adding lines as scratches here and there. Naturally, we would use a brighter red here for the edge highlights, but when we use metallics on the edges, what happens is, due to the reflective nature, light bounces off and makes the edges appear brighter, which is what our brain expects, and it registers as correct. Our brain even goes so far and fills in the rest for us, because that's what brains are trained to do. This approach is shockingly very effective, and of course it's a matter of how weathered and chipped you would like your marines to be, and in this case it will probably fit better for word bearers than blood angels, but I really like how this is turning out. I can move relatively quickly here, like on the backpack you see that I'm just running the brush across the edge, and I paint a scratch line here and there and then move on. At this point there's not that much time left, so I start to move even quicker, and I also get some results that I really don't like the large chunk of metallic paint that ends up on the backpack. And you can see how I just slapped the paint on with all kinds of unconventional strokes, as there is less than 2 minutes left and the clock keeps ticking up mercilessly. One last detail I wanted to do in any case was the eyes, so I took a jade green and made sure that all of the area of eye lenses was covered. And then I mixed in some white to paint the highlight line at the top. At 30 minutes sharp, I decided to invest 10 seconds more to paint one reflection dot with almost pure white, which puts me at about 15 seconds over 30 minutes, which is an acceptable trade-off for how much it adds. And this is a close-up of the result. What do you think? At this point you can add decals if you want to, which for the sake of presentation I also did quickly, and I also added a basic level of basic material. So let's take a look at what this little exercise taught me and maybe what I would do different. I had to make a lot of compromises here. I had to throw a lot of principles and concepts that I had overboard, or had to massively adapt them. I already mentioned using a lot of excess color while dabbing the chipping on, and using the metallic paint as an edge highlight instead of going in there with a brighter red. And I would usually never just put metallic paint on a base color to simulate scratches like I did back here. And frankly, in some parts it looks really ugly. But that was mainly due to not having enough time to control the brush properly while still wanting to put extra detail in there. It was, however, interesting to try and come up with ways to apply my general principles of painting in a way that would speed everything up. Like, I really enjoyed doing these metallic edge highlights that also doubled as chipped armor. And even though the parts where I put metallics right on top of the red don't look so good, the edge highlights work really well in my opinion. Did I enjoy painting this way? Yes and no. For me, what is important about painting is the process. It has something therapeutic to slowly create a vision I have in mind, seeing it come together gradually and not rushing it. Being under stress while painting, while I was able to pull it off in the time limit, I did not feel that sense of enjoyment that I get from painting, but that's just me. I almost felt compelled to make the takeaway message of this video into, yes, a faster way of painting teaches you interesting shortcuts, and I also wanted to repeat what I was saying since the first time I ever uploaded a painting video to this channel, that being afraid to put down paint is something you shouldn't be. And there's a lot of channels echoing this message, and it's true. Going out of your comfort zone and not being worried about every single brush stroke is important, but I feel like you don't need to overdo it. Thinking of what I could have done with this, in just double the time is insane. And double the time is an hour, and that's really fast for a single miniature. You could pump out a squad or two in a day with that speed, if you're really dedicated. Just putting 5 more minutes into painting the eyes would have improved everything so much. So yes, going faster loses fun and takes away a lot of anxiety, but the message here is not the faster the better. Even painters like Banshee, that is used as a poster board for fast approaches, does apply a certain care when it comes to underlying principles of painting and doesn't just mindlessly slap on paint. So yes, these quick exercises help when you want to become better at miniature painting, but don't lose sight. Trends are often oscillating from one extreme to the other, from taking ages to finish a miniature to everything taking longer than 20 minutes is bad. Just be aware of that and find your own tempo that you're happy with. So hopefully you learned something from this video, whether about speed painting or about the philosophy of miniature painting. If you enjoy my videos, consider supporting my Patreon campaign that has a lot of helpful and fun rewards. For example, you can hang out and chat with me and the other nerds on our Discord server. And of course you can get many more videos and tutorials that will improve your painting. Leaving a like, subscribing if you're new here, all of that helps. And if you want to do me a favor, watch one of my other videos. Thanks for watching. Don't tell anyone I didn't paint any edge highlights back here.